Welcome to the next episode of Welcome to Perth Catch-Ups. I've got the next guest. You may have seen him before, may have heard of him once or twice through the media, but I've got Basil Zempilas here with me. How you going, mate?
Oh, I'm really well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Great pleasure.
Now, you're a busy man at the moment, so you're on a radio station, you're on TV, and you're running for Lord Mayor.
Yes, it's an interesting combination, isn't it? So I am busy. Look, I've always found the best version of me, and nobody knows yourself like you. Sometimes you've kind of got to be a tough marker and really assess yourself honestly and accurately. And my wife will tell you this, I'll tell you this, I'm sure my parents would tell you this, but the best version of me is a busy version of me. Yeah. And so, yes, I am loaded up, but I've probably operated at this sort of manic level for nearly 10 years now, and I enjoy it, I can manage it, I've got wonderful support from my family. My wife Amy's amazing, and my kids are very understanding, and they're along for the ride too. Not that they don't make sacrifices, and I make sacrifices, but it's a lot to take on, but I enjoy taking on a lot, and I've always felt that I've got a big capacity, so that's why I am where I am.
And so juggling a lot of balls, and maybe one might drop every now and then rather than just focusing on the one ball might be a little bit too boring.
Look, a little bit like that, and you know, in many ways, I've often said to young uni students or journalism students, I don't think I'm especially good at anything, but I am a hard worker, and I'll back myself to be the hardest worker and the most reliable in any contest. And it's funny in life, an observation that I didn't sort of set out with a plan of being, I'm going to be super reliable and super hardworking. It's just sort of how I was. But it's amazing how that can hold you in such good stead. And so I don't think it's necessarily the most remarkable talents that achieve the most. Sometimes I think it's the very good talents or the pretty good talents, but who happen to couple that with a strong work ethic and reliability. I mean, one of the things I notice in younger people particularly, and if there's any advice, resilience and reliability, those two R's, they are massive. And as I say, when I was a young bloke, I didn't walk around going, resilience and reliability, that'll hold you in good stead. Yeah. But they're important, they're really important. And you know, if you can get a handle on those things, I think you can go a long way in whatever your chosen field might be.
And what's your view on the media landscape now and for younger people coming up and wanting to get into media?
It's an interesting question. I get asked this a lot, and a lot of people are sort of prophets of doom, if you like. Oh, the media's in trouble and, you know, there won't be many jobs. I see it totally differently. I don't think there's ever been as many jobs. I mean, this is the media, what we're doing now. Now, when I was a young bloke starting out, this didn't exist. There was no opportunity for me to do my own podcast, or vodcast now, isn't it? Yeah. And get it out there for people to see. And I say to young people coming through, everyone can be in the media now. Everyone can be in the media. And if you've got an idea or an interest or a topic or a thirst for knowledge, great. Go and video yourself as basically on your iPhone if you want, or even just your audio, and post it, and away you go. And you know, when I look at sport specifically, there was a time when footy and cricket were the sports that got covered, and not much else other than Olympic time. You know, now there's not many sports in Australia that don't have television coverage. Now that wasn't the way 15 or 20 years ago. So.
And why do you think that is the case?
Well, I think because there is platforms for it. I think obviously there's pay TV now, subscription television. There's also video on demand. And there's been a terrific dedication from the federal government to make sure that on the ABC and SBS, other what we call minor sports get coverage that they otherwise didn't get. So just specifically in sport, if you're a young sports broadcaster, don't be fooled if somebody tries to tell you it's a bad time to be getting into it. There's never, ever been a better time to be getting into it.
Yeah, bigger database to be able to use the internet with a platform.
Exactly. You know, and look, in the old days, I could go to Leederville Oval, watch West Perth playing, and I could record it on an old cassette tape. Terrific, great practice, but I couldn't put that anywhere. Now...
And did you? Yes,
I did indeed. I did indeed. Jager down to Menaglio, handballs to Fong. But now I could do that, and I could post it on the internet. Or I could set it up on YouTube, and I could send that clip digitally to a boss at Channel 7 or the ABC or at Triple M Radio, and they might say, that kid's got talent. So, you know, there is opportunities that exist now that didn't exist when I was younger.
I love it. Well, it's an interesting year, 2020,
Yeah, sure is.
but at the same time, there is plenty of opportunities. So once we got over this little speed bump,
And so, don't be disheartened, I guess I would say, and don't necessarily believe it. When I was at uni, I had lecturers, I remember saying, tough time to be getting into journalism. Gee, bad time to be, bad time to be getting. Now, that doesn't fit with the sort of person I am anyway. I'm a positive person, glass half full, optimistic all the time. Probably drives people mad that I'm as optimistic as I am. But just don't buy it is my advice. And it's not like I'm going to prove him wrong even. It's just don't buy that negative rhetoric about bad time to be trying to get into it.
Because it will be if you buy it.
Exactly. And if you, and deep down, if you want that to be the answer, well, it's pretty easy for it to be the answer for you. But there is plenty of opportunity.
I love it. So it's been a full-on career already, and so really you've got a fair few years still to go in your professional career, wherever it may span. Give us your two highlights of your media career to date.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Look, I've been blessed. I really have. I spoke somewhere this week and had the Tokyo Olympics taken place. I think that would have been my 8th Olympic Games, and it may well still take place, and that'll be 8 Olympics, 5 Commonwealth Games, 4 World Swimming Championships, 10 Australian Opens. The last 4 or 5 I called the women's final and did the presentation. Look, there's one moment that probably stands out as just like, wow, and one of them is calling Stephen Bradbury's race, only because it was so unusual, the circumstances were so unique, and it's one of those moments that stands the test of time. And to be the
first gold medal.
first Australian Winter Olympic gold medal, and then be the Australian that called it for Australian television, that's really special. But my first Australian Open final presentation, Bruce McAvaney had always done that, and Bruce opted out of the tennis. He had a few, not so much health issues, he just wanted to scale back, and fair enough. And so I was elevated up the batting order, if you like, and I replaced Sandy Roberts, who had previously called the women's finals, and I started calling the women's finals, and as part of the double whammy, I was asked to do the presentations as well. And so for the first men's final that I did the presentation, the final was Roger Federer versus Rafael Nadal on Rod Laver Arena. It was 8-6 in the 5th. And then we go out to do the presentation in the middle of Rod Laver Arena. Roger Federer hadn't won a Grand Slam for about 3 years, and this was remarkable.
When he was, everyone thought he was done and dusted.
18, people thought he might have even been on. He hadn't won one for a long time.
Yeah, and everyone was saying he's injured,
done.
he's
He
out,
won't
and
win
then he
anymore.
came to the Hopman Cup and he played well, and everyone was like, okay.
Exactly. And so we go out to do the presentation. Rod Laver Arena. We've just had an 8-6 final in the 5th that falls Roger's way, and there are 4 people on stage, and this goes to a global television audience, and the 4 people are Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Rod Laver himself, and Basil Zempilas. And that moment, when I think of that, that's a spin-out moment in my own mind that will be a spin-out moment until the day that I'm no longer here, because, you do pinch yourself and go, wow. And with that comes a bit of pressure.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Was the nerves there as you were walking out?
I'm pretty fortunate by the time that came around, and that was 2017 or 2018.
A couple years in the bank of experience.
Look, I'd done a lot of emceeing and a lot of big crowd type stuff. And it's funny, sometimes the bigger the crowd and the brighter the lights, the easier it is, because you can't see anything and you don't really know, you're not aware of other stuff. Sometimes the smaller crowd's harder because you can see the bloke look bored or the bloke roll his eyes. When it's a bigger crowd. And so I went out thinking, wow, this is a pretty big moment, but just go out and do it. Don't worry about what can go wrong, just worry about what you know you're going to do right. And I remember thinking, keep it pretty simple. There's always a temptation to say something magnificent, or, come out with some amazing line, which will never get used again anyway. But it went well, and it's funny. I finished the presentation, and I walked back from Rod Laver Arena as Roger's sort of going around doing the lap of honour, holding the trophy up, back to the 7 compound, the other side of Melbourne Park. And I looked down at my phone and I had a text message from Bruce who said, "Well done, you should be very proud of yourself," or something to that effect. And so that combination, they're spin-out moments. Yeah, it was.
So is Bruce a bit of a mentor for you?
Bruce, Dennis, obviously, Dennis Cometti. Not that Bruce has been a lesser mentor than Dennis, but obviously I've grown up a lot around Dennis. We've worked together a lot. I idolised him. He became a mentor, a colleague, and a friend. And I've been blessed to be able to be as close to Dennis as I've been. He's always had wonderful advice, but he's never offered too much advice unless it's been asked for. I think the luckiest thing for me, really 3 people that I've worked around. Rick and Sue on 7 News. They've been at it for 35 years, and I've been their sport guy for 20 years. I took over from Dennis. So Rick and Sue, Dennis, it's just being with them and being around them.
Seeing their professionalism and how they handle different situations.
And also, I think, just having respect for what you're stepping into. And one of the lucky things, someone like Hamish McLaughlin and I that we've had, is coming up as the next generation, is the great legacy that was established by the ones that came before us, the professionalism, the standards. Dennis, Bruce, Sandy Roberts, Peter Landy, Drew Morfitt, those sorts of people. They operated at a very high standard, and Rick and Sue the same. And I think one of the benefits that I've had, and other young people coming through, and I'm not one of the young ones anymore, but was to step into an environment where their professionalism just sort of, it was omnipresent.
Yeah, engulfed.
And so you knew when you got there, this isn't somewhere where you muck around or crack jokes or have your shirt hanging out. This is somewhere where you've got to be on your game. And I think that's probably the luckiest, that's amongst the luckiest thing that's happened to me in my career.
So personality-wise, is that something that you've seen across all of those people? That's what they all have in common?
Well, a real professionalism. I think at the end of the day, the 2 things that all of those people have had is a massive work ethic. Well, actually 3 things. A massive work ethic, super professionalism, and as it turns out, they've been very, very good at what they do. And so all of those people have had those traits. And Dan and Bruce, you know, like in a few years to come, when Bruce is no longer calling footy, and Dan now is not really calling footy, but we will marvel at how lucky we were to have a generation of those 2 guys. I mean, both remarkable talents, incredibly gifted, but in different ways. But the one absolute thing, and even though their work ethic manifested in different ways, and I saw Bruce's style of preparation and Dennis's style of preparation, but one thing they both had, as good as they both were, and they both were the sort of people that could have just turned up and done it, but they never ever did. They never ever took a broadcast or an opportunity for granted. They worked their backsides off to be ready for whatever it was. And you know, and Bruce has done a lot of high level sport. He also does a lot of very low level sport that a lot of people wouldn't even see. But he prepares as hard for those and as much for those as he does for the absolute elite Olympic finals, Australian Open finals, AFL Grand finals. And that's the measure of the man. And that's not something he taught me or showed me, or people like me and Hamish. That's just something you took in by osmosis.
And so, is that something that you want to be doing more of in the future? With are you trying to step into, you know, those shoes respectfully?
Yeah, well, probably, if anything, now I've taken another sideways step. I mean, obviously, I'm hoping to be the next Lord Mayor of the City of Perth, and so I will continue to work at 7. I've been very clear about that. And I will manage my career around the Lord Mayoral duties should I be successful. But it's probably fair to say that I'm probably not charging ahead to try and be the next Bruce or Dennis, because I'm adding something pretty considerable to my work.
Throwing a big ball up in there as well.
But for example, if the Olympics do go ahead next year, and I am the Lord Mayor of the City of Perth, yes, I will still go to the Olympics. Absolutely, yeah.
And so, on Lord Mayor, what was the so it is a little bit of a pivot, but I think there couldn't be anyone better to be going into trying to get into the role. We'll find out shortly. Sure. What was the decision behind that? I imagine there was a bit of discussion with your wife as well.
Absolutely, there was, and actually it was a family decision, to be honest. And when I say family decision, in the end, I mean, I love Perth, and we can see it behind us. It's the world's most beautiful city, and I've travelled a lot. But it just felt to me, as somebody who lived in the city and was walking down from West Perth to East Perth, down to 6PR every morning for the last 7 years, I just noticed a bit of a deterioration in the standard of the city. And to me, look, it started as something very fundamental. My wife really stopped feeling comfortable bringing the kids into town on her own. And that didn't feel like that was the right thing for our city. And you know, there was a general decline in the standards of the city. And so it was a pretty easy focus for me. I wanted to make it cleaner and safer and friendlier for families. And I figure if you make it friendlier and safer for families, you make it friendlier and safer for everybody. So that was my starting point. And then when I looked at the role, we hadn't had a Lord Mayor for 3 years or an elected council, looked at what had been in the role and the sorts of personalities that it had attracted and what I had. And I think I come at it with a fresh set of eyes from a different area and with a different skill set. I'm a communicator, I'm a leader, I'm a principled leader. I believe in very simple fundamentals that my parents taught me. Work hard, use common sense, and do the right thing. And I've applied those 3 values to everything I've done in my professional career, and it's held me in good stead. And interestingly, I've always worked as part of teams. And as it turns out, that's brought great success to the teams that I've been a part of. I'm not saying it's all because of me, but teamwork has been an absolute fundamental. And as well as working with teams to produce the best professional broadcasting result we could, turns out because of what I did, I was looking at teams all the time. And so I was part of teams, observing teams, operating at the highest level. And it turned out, or seemed to me, that success came in all of the observations that I had from teams that were very well led, principled leadership that came from the top, the values of that principled leadership filtering down through the organisation, a strong message, a strong game plan, and everybody knowing their role and being prepared to work together with integrity and transparency. And so that's how Real Madrid operate. That's how the West Coast Eagles operate. That's how the Australian cricket team under Justin Langer operates.
Culture thing, doesn't it?
Exactly. And so when I thought, well, hang on, they're the sort of organisations or teams that I've been a part of, and they're the sorts of teams that I've been observing my whole professional life, why can't I take that into the Perth City Council? So not much more complicated than that. I've got a skill set, I've got a passion for Perth. It felt to me that Perth needed a strong leader, a champion, if you like, for the great things about Perth. And I figured that I had what it took to at least put my hand up. So I'm delighted that I have.
Now the postal votes, it's a 3-week process.
It starts on Monday.
So Monday
so that's this Monday coming. That's the postal ballots go out on Friday, September 21, and from the Monday following that, after this weekend, they'll start arriving in people's letterboxes. It's a postal ballot, and it's non-compulsory. So if people are interested in having a say, they've got to make the decision to have a say. You won't get a fine for not voting, so you've really got to make the conscious decision, all right, I want to have my say in the future of the City of Perth. I want to go out and do it. So if you like what you're hearing here and you like the idea of this bloke being the Lord Mayor of the City of Perth and you're a ratepayer in the City of Perth or on the electoral roll, you've got to consciously decide to do it. So I am... look, to be honest, I've been excited by the contest. It's been great fun. I've enjoyed it. And it turns out it's not been much different to what I normally do, which is going out, meeting people, listening, talking to them, finding out what's important to them, and then trying to work out a plan for how we can make that happen more often.
So where do you see Perth going? Where would you like to see Perth going? So how does Perth look in 10 years' time to you?
Yeah, look, so safer and cleaner. That's my starting block. Safer, cleaner, friendlier. And then I've got a huge focus on people. It's a people-focused plan for me, but it centres around people-focused events and attractions. Now, they can be big things or they can be little things. They could be street art and music display from 1 or 2 people down here. It's funny that in a city like Perth we don't see more of that. And those little events, if you like, are just as important as the big events. In some ways they're as important because they fill the gaps on the quiet moments, if you like.
And more of that culture and that vibe where it feels good to be walking around. You want to be getting involved. And
music and art is life, isn't it? And people bring life. So, you know, great buildings, wonderful built attractions like this are terrific. But it's people that make a city brilliant. And so we've got to encourage people to be in the city more often. But I've got as I said, 8 Olympic Games, opening ceremonies. I've commentated the last 4 opening ceremonies. Those things make a big impact on you. And so a couple of big picture things that I would love to see. I'm championing the 2027 Special Olympic Games for Perth. That might sound like a long way away, but it gets decided early to mid 2021. Okay. It's a brilliant event. It's a feel-good event.
So people all over the world.
All over the world coming with all of their families. And the best part about the Special Olympics, it's feel-good because of the athletes that are competing and the nature of their disability. But also, it doesn't require any infrastructure spend. So what happens with the organisers is they come to the city and they go, okay, great, Perth's the host city. You've got Leederville Oval, we'll use that for this. Cool. You've got Kings Park, terrific, that's where we'll do our shot put. You've got a beautiful stadium, great, we'll do running races there. So it doesn't require any additional spend.
Not the Brazil. I went to Brazil for the World Cup and they built these big stadiums, and I was chatting to the locals and they said, well, there's no point for this because it's just going to be empty once we leave.
And it brings 500,000 people to the city, and it brings worldwide television coverage on ESPN. They cover the Special Olympics.
Great for tourism, for people putting Perth on the international map.
But most importantly, it's a feel-good event where school kids can be involved, everybody can be involved, and I just love what it stands for. So I'm championing that. I've got this idea for the new Giants. Everybody loved the Giants. Yeah. I'd love to bring the Giants back, but I think they're in a shed somewhere and unavailable at the moment. So I've got this idea to celebrate the mining industry, which has such a big impact on WA. We're all connected to the mining industry in some way, shape or form. I've got this idea of filling Langley Park one school holidays for a week of the school holidays, bring all of the massive trucks from all of the massive miners, fill Langley Park, bring all the school kids and families down, let them climb on them, jump on it, climb up the tyres, have their photos next to it, build some dongers on the side so that those who have got kids who they FaceTime with normally from a donger, and you say, come in and this is where Dad normally lives or Mum stays when she's at work, and just give West Aussies a taste of the mining and FIFO life, which we know has such a huge impact on them already, but they don't often get to see it because we don't all go up to the mine sites. And part of it is driving those huge trucks down the city of Perth or down the centre so we can have a new Giants, as I call it, as they get there.
Our local Giants.
Exactly. And one other one, which I saw in Sydney when I was hosting Weekend Sunrise for a couple of years, they have a festival called the Vivid Festival. It's a festival, they call it, of light, music and ideas. And they light the place up. Creative minds, creative thought engulfs Sydney for about a month. Now, we've got as good a natural amphitheatre as they have. We've got as good a thinkers as they have. We've got talent and lots of stuff that we can light up the way they do. So a Sydney Vivid style event. I don't want to copy their event. I'd like to take some of the themes that they have in their event and make it our own and do it in a West Australian way. So they're 3 things that I'm really keen to champion. I would love to make those happen. One of them, the Special Olympics, I reckon I'll put my weight behind anyway, whether I'm elected Lord Mayor or not, because it's such a good event. And the more I learn about it, the more I love. And as I say, it goes back to my theme of people-focused events and attractions. And we know nothing makes a city buzz like an event. And go into the west end of the city on a Sunday afternoon if the Wildcats are playing, and be there an hour before tip-off or an hour after tip-off.
All those businesses are flourishing.
And everything changes. The whole dynamic of the city changes.
Yeah. So from here, Baz, what's going to, what does the next 2 weeks look like for you? Is it pretty busy, I imagine?
Pretty crazy, yeah. Look, it's getting around and trying to encourage people to vote.
How have the chats been with people that you've been meeting?
Look, it's encouraging, but I suppose the difference here is we're all non-political people, and it's not like we're representing a political party. We're really representing Perth, and what we're pushing for is Perth. So I'm sure all of the candidates say they're getting a great reception, which I'm sure they are, and that's terrific. It's been a great contest of ideas, and I think that's what Perth needed. But importantly, Perth and the city of Perth is back on the agenda for the right reasons, and I think for too long, there was so much negative talk around the council, and as an extension around Perth. So it's been good that there's been lots of positive stuff spoken, and I think win, lose or draw, in my case I don't feel like if it's, you can't draw. So win or lose. Exactly. If I win, I win. And if I lose, I don't lose. It's been nothing but experience anyway, and it's been a great opportunity to do something different, In some ways, it's out of my comfort zone. In some ways, I've put it all on the line. But at the same, I don't really feel about it that way. I just feel like I am doing something that I've been committed to, that I believe in. I wanted to give it a crack, put my hand up and done it. I don't think anybody will think less of me should the result in a couple of weeks not come out my way. You know, importantly, it's what will I think of me? And, you know, you ask yourself that question. And in the end, I kind of think I don't want to say, it sounds a bit, but I'm proud of myself for having done it, because it was a big call. It was a big call, but I'm absolutely thrilled that I've put myself on the line, that I've put my ideas forward, that I've put myself forward and given myself exposure to this amazing contest. So I've got nothing but good things to say about it.
Yeah, well, as someone a little bit less ambitious or less motivated or driven, would have just taken the easy route and just continue on, you know, what you were doing. But yeah, very impressive, mate, with the career you've had so far in media, but also diversifying and trying new things and trying to promote our city, because it is an unbelievable city.
Yeah, it is.
And the more people that come here and see it, that's better. So
one of the very early years covering the West Indies down at the Wacker, and Richie Richardson, and they were at the Wacker Nets, and they had on their T-shirt, they all had these T-shirts, and it said the greatest risk is to take no risks. I guess that's the way they played their cricket, and that slogan at the time, they were unbelievable, and that slogan really stuck in my mind. And in many ways, you're right, the easy thing to do would have been not to put my hand up, but it's not in my nature. I'm glad I put my hand up, and whatever happens from here, it's been quite breathtaking. I've loved it.
Awesome, Basil. Very nice to interview you, mate. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time, everyone.